Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That is Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. Hey, Vanessa, 1 week ago, you mentioned supernova in the East.
Yes.
And it really caught my attention. And in this 1 week, I have listened to all 31 hours of it.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I guess don't spoil the last 4 because I'm at the very last end of it.
Oh, let me tell
Don't
you, that
spoil
last,
it.
that last 4 is tough listening.
Oh man.
But that Dan Carlin guy is so interesting,
Yes.
and the way he speaks is so soothing, and so that when he gets wound up about something,
Oh my
you
God,
can
it
feel
hits
it.
you.
Man, what an amazing series! I had very little knowledge of everything that happened in the Pacific Theater.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly how I felt.
It's amazing how much, I mean, we hear about the European
Yeah.
aspect of the war, but so little about Japan's.
Which is crazy because we really weren't at war with Germany. We were at war with Japan and then got into a war with Germany because of that. So, yeah, it is really interesting. He doesn't sugarcoat it.
No,
And,
he does not.
and I just could not stop listening. And Eric, you know, I listened to a lot of podcasts during the week. I listened to nothing but this podcast.
Oh my God.
So I must thank you. This is
you're
the
welcome.
value that we give, is putting stuff like this into people's brains. And then I had no idea that this is going to be my new favorite podcast. Just, I'm scrolling through all of his other episodes going, well, I better add that one,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, everyone I've told this podcast to has been so excited about the content of it and just been like, I got to listen to this thing. But it's also like the most harrowing stuff. I mean, I've
truly
never, I know war is awful, but I was like, fuck, that is truly awful.
one of the things he keeps bringing up is the numbers of casualties, and he's right. Those are just numbers. So then he starts backing it with these personal stories, and you're like, oh my God, my God, how horrible.
His testimonials that he's reading from, and it's such a huge swath of different like books and letters and audio. It feels very well researched and really holds up every one of his points, which makes everyone that much more devastating. I think at one point he mentions the Doolittle raid and how, by virtue of the fact that, maybe I saw this in something else, but okay, I'm going to rewind that. Sorry, never mind. I saw that in Midway.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Sure. It's a bad story, but just like the sheer numbers of Chinese people that were killed consistently throughout, it's unfathomable. Like your brain cannot wrap around it.
Yeah, amazing stuff. So I just wanted to thank you for that. That was just such an eye-opening experience for me.
I'm so glad you
also,
checked it out.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, it's a good example of, because we're so good as humans at dehumanizing others, quote unquote, whatever you choose to be your other.
Yeah.
That they become, like you said, it's just a statistic, it's just a number. But all these people had families and loved ones, had something they wanted to do there. I mean, we're all people.
Yeah.
And that is really cool that he's able to crush us entirely with his story of that aspect.
Yeah. So I needed something to kind of cleanse the palate. And what I did was watch Insidious, The Red Door.
Did you watch the other Insidiouses to prepare yourself for Insidious
5, is it?
I was going to say 3, and I knew that was wrong.
Did you think that I needed to watch the other ones to understand what was going on in these movies?
Oh, so much so.
This is kind of Insidious 3 in that it is the only sequel that deals with the people from the first 2 movies. So like Insidious 3 and 4 were spin-off stories, kind of.
Okay.
Not very good,
Oh no.
but I know that it is the highest grossing film in the series now, and it was directed by Patrick Wilson, and that makes me very happy for him, and I hope that he gets to move on to directing other things. But I thought this was not very scary, and
It's fine.
so.
Did it had the same? My biggest problem with a lot of the ghost stories that come out of Blumhouse is they're not ghost stories as much as they are advancing action movies. Where it starts off and there's some really cool, creepy stuff, but they feel the weird need. We've got to build this. It's got to be bigger and bigger. We have to have trees slamming through walls and all this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't. Does it do that?
Well, if you're asking, does it rely on effects rather than mood?
Yes.
Then yes, you're right. It
Okay.
does exactly that kind
That's
of stuff, which kills any kind of creep momentum that it might have. So your mileage may vary, but Insidious, The Red Door, not my favorite of the series.
Okay.
Well, speaking of Patrick Wilson, just a quick shout out. This isn't what I watched this week, but I had seen Midway a couple weeks ago, and I'd forgotten why on earth he was in Moon for for Roland Emmerich, and I was like, why is he starring in this?
Right.
He's a huge part of Midway, and he's really good in it. And I was like, oh, that's why you put Patrick Wilson as your lead action hero.
That Midway movie doesn't get enough love. I
It's
thought that
so
was a
good.
really good movie.
I rewatched it after listening to
Of course.
Supernova in the East, and it was great. It was great how accurate it was.
Oh,
There was
that's cool.
some really great. I was like, oh no, are they going to show the oil being lit on the ships in Pearl Harbor and people burning alive when they jump in the water? Oh yeah, they are. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty
Awesome.
awful.
Anyways,
Awesome. Yeah.
this week I had a headache for about 3-4 days
Oh.
straight.
Fun.
So that's been good. I've had some really, truly wonderful teeth adventures recently.
It's probably a
Oh,
tumor.
jeez.
Well, it is an ulcer, which is like a tumor, but it goes away and it's not cancerous.
Oh,
And then
that's
it comes
good.
back, and then it goes away, and then it comes back.
Ugh.
But so I ended up watching all of Ted Lasso,
Oh, okay.
all of it.
3 seasons, is it?
3 seasons,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'd seen season 1 and half of season 2, and so I was like, well, it's been long enough. I need to jump back in all the way from the start, and it was really good. I can see why
Yeah.
people like it.
I need to watch the rest of that series. I've only seen the first season.
It continues to be great.
Cool.
There's never really a moment where you feel like that's really lost its way. Like it feels continuously pretty strong.
This is one that I keep forgetting about, quite honestly. Is
Yeah.
it just kind of like a feel-good show, or what
Yeah,
do you
but
love about it?
I think the fact that they do bring up some real topics, but in a
Yeah.
way that like
Are you familiar with the movie Major League and the story
Yeah.
that is kind of similar to that story?
Oh,
Where she hires this useless coach from America who knows nothing about football, and with the idea of crushing the team and the attendance and everything like
okay.
that. And he's such impossibly positive about everything that he just kind of pushes through all the bullshit.
Okay.
but
It's
the
fun.
bullshit's all there.
Yes.
Like she
Yeah.
has a ex who constantly shows up, and he used to own the team, and he belittles her, and there's some weird, difficult, and that's not, I mean, the other thing I really like about it is how sex positive it is too. So at one point there's a girl there's a girl and a guy, and you're like, are they, won't they, yes, no, are they gonna finally get together? And they have a kiss, and then he kind of doesn't ask her out, and she's like, what the fuck does this mean? And she gets sad, and she sleeps with her ex, and then the guy finds out, and because he's like, let's go ahead and move forward. And she was like, okay, great, but yesterday I did sleep with my ex, just so you know. I just don't want there to be surprises. And in a typical show, he's gonna be mad, it's gonna cause a lot of drama. And in this, he gets upset, he tells his friends, and they say, well, were you together? No. Okay. So you weren't together, but you're mad about everyone she's had sex with before you. She gets to be mad about everyone you've had sex with before. There was just this kind of like, why are you being stupid?
right.
Sense to those moments. And I really appreciated how they address the stuff that would typically be used as like emotional fodder in other shows.
Yeah, that's
Right,
a good, because saying he's relentlessly positive is not fair to his characters. He's an incredibly three-dimensional character. That's just his defining characteristic. But he
Yeah.
has all kinds of weird shit going on with his family back in the U.S. and all kinds of things. So it's a neat show.
Yeah, and later on, he ends up developing panic attacks. So the way they work with that too, somebody who's relentlessly positive, but then turns their head and can't breathe. There's this kind of, because of how relentlessly positive they are, that they've been crushing the badness inside them. So
Okay.
Anyway, good show.
I
Cool.
need to give it a try.
Yeah.
Subspecies V.
Wow.
What is it?
This is a series that you have a soft spot for.
I do. Yeah, so this one's Subspecies V, Bloodrise. It's very different from the rest of the subseries. It's basically Count, what's his name? Blank. Radish. Radu.
Well-known
Count
radish.
Radu, who is it's sort of his origin story.
Okay.
So it covers like 500 years or something. It's incredibly well shot. It might be one of the best looking full moon pictures I've seen in a very long time.
Wow.
It's also one of the best full moon pictures I've seen in a very long time.
Huh.
It's not great. It's a little too. Part of that's fun with this series is they're kind of not so serious. They're serious, but they've got a weird tinge of oddities and like the little clay guys that run around and strange little things going on.
Yeah.
This one's much more straightforward. It's very much a vampire story, and the people that come in and out of his life and the way he works with stuff. So it's real different, but it's pretty good. It's well done. It's a nice addition to the series.
Is it all the same actors in all these movies?
It has some of the same. Yeah, the Radu guy's the same.
It is. Okay.
So
Through 5 movies. Wow.
He's quite a bit older, which looks interesting at times. That was 20 years ago or something when those were out, in the 90s or.
If it was the 90s, that's 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
God. Hush.
Them aughts always get lost.
It's easy to forget them. Those high school years do not need to be remembered. Partial.
The aughts? Yeah, they won't.
Subspecies 5.
So would you recommend it?
If you like the series, absolutely.
What if you've
if you're-
never even heard of it?
Probably not.
Okay, there we go.
Probably not. Yeah. If you're familiar with Full Moon, you kind of know what you're getting into with the original Subspecies series.
Sure.
But this one's a little different. And again, the last few full moons I've seen have been just awful. Not just they don't care. There's nothing. But in this one is very much a lot of effort was put into it.
Yeah.
So
It does seem like Full Moon has like no money to spend on anything right now. So, well, Vanessa will try to keep it brief, but Eric, you and I have to talk about this Star Trek.
The musical.
Just the entire season has just been such a bummer for me.
Well, there's one more episode, so total redemption is on the horizon.
I guess I will watch this final episode because I don't know why. I did realize that. First of all, I just, I groaned my way and I felt embarrassed for everybody involved in this musical episode. And I realized, okay, I think that the Star Trek fandom is much younger than me in general. I don't think the fans of the original series and the original movies are necessarily loving this season or new Star Trek in general. I mean, I'm sure that there are people like you guys but I don't think the people who originally just loved that original series, like I could never get into Next Generation or any of that stuff.
That sounds very much like somebody who watched the original. There were a lot of people who got turned away as soon as they went to the Next Generation.
Yeah. I watched my mom and I watched all of the Next Gen and then almost all of Voyager and all that together. So it's
one of your things.
Seeped in me a little bit.
Yep, every Sunday I watched Next Gen with my brother. Yep.
Yeah, so I thought that, I don't know, I laughed a little bit at how much auto-tuning was needed to make Spock sound like a good singer. And I was like, oh, This poor guy probably was like, "We're doing a what? A musical episode? Does
Yeah.
anybody know that I can't sing?"
Well, I think Pike was even worse. He seemed like he had like big group sings and then a couple lines
Yeah.
individual.
They're like, how about you just say it, but like with a little bit of emphasis? You just hold on to those last words a minute.
There you go. It seemed like they had a Buffy reference in that episode.
Oh,
A
they
Buffy
had
reference?
to.
Yes,
have.
the Buffy the musical reference. Did you catch that?
No.
They're talking about different things or however the music thing came about.
Mhm.
They said, yeah, in another dimension we could be bunnies.
Oh, right.
Like, oh, I hope it's not bunnies. Like, is
Okay.
That's 100%
Is it okay?
dead on. Yeah, somebody's a Buffy fan. I
Yeah.
mean, by doing this at all, you have to be a Buffy fan. I mean, they are the other people who started this sort of tradition of a musical episode, especially with people who can't sing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Eric knows this. I am a huge fan of musicals. Musical
Yeah.
theater, I love.
Mhm.
Some of my favorite films are musicals. And I love that Buffy episode.
Oh, yeah, it's a great episode.
The demon who makes you do this seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like an easier pill to swallow than this sentience.
It was a very convoluted way to come up with how
Yeah.
it happened. It's that I have no problem
And
with.
then if you put too much thought into it, you're like, it's how interesting that in 400 years, all they listen to is music from our century
Mm.
and stuff like that. And I would have liked to have seen the Klingons do something so ridiculously out of place because it was their music that we would all just be going, what the fuck are they even doing? Instead of more of our music.
Mm.
So I don't know. I've just been really unhappy with this. I realize what attracted me to this was my Star Trek crew.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
But my Star Trek crew were adults and these are kids. And
Yeah,
it's just
except for
like,
Pike.
and it's like,
Mhm.
I'm just bummed. I think I'll probably be giving up on Star Trek again. So.
You never know. I mean, there's a lot of other
No,
Star
no,
Trek.
let him give up on Star Trek.
Okay, never mind. It's all good. You don't have to. I'll get you a nice box set of the original movies. Okay,
there you go.
can just enjoy those.
I do have to give a shout out to Michael DeBronzo, who contacted me through private messaging to say, this season is garbage, and have you watched a musical episode yet? And I was like, no. And he goes, well, I can't wait to hear what you thought of it.
Oh,
so
Does he
I-
really need to wait to know what you would think about it?
So,
I mean, come on.
I feel a little bit better knowing that I'm not the only person who's not having
No,
a
of
good
course
time
not.
with this
I mean,
season.
it's a pop culture thing, which means there's going to be a giant segment, no matter how good it is or how bad it is, there's going to be a giant segment that hates it with the
Mhm.
passion of anything they've ever seen. It's the worst Star Trek the world has ever created. Or it's the greatest Star Trek the world has ever created. Where I'm guessing most of Trek fans kind of sit in the middle of that going, because I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I know.
And so, but I don't necessarily think that's the greatest Star Trek ever. It could reach that level. Who
Right.
knows? But
Yeah, same. Like I'm very much in the same boat as you. And I think the reason why I have a lot of patience for Trek in maybe a way that you might not, Kelly, is after watching Next Gen and DS9, and then at the time I really didn't like Voyager. I now love it, but at the time I was kind of pissed off with it. Enterprise was one of the biggest disappointments for the
jeez.
longest time.
so bad.
It hurt
Hmm.
how bad it was.
Yeah.
It was not just bad for bad's sake like Voyager. It was bad and boring.
Mm.
And that's such a horrible combo. And then we had the desert years where there was no Trek. And Discovery came along and we're like, yeah, oh no. We got so excited and it was almost good for like half a second.
There's some really good episodes, but there's
There's-
some real crap in there too.
Most of it, I'd say 90% bad, 10%. Oh shit, it's gonna get good again. Oh no.
No.
So, and of course, like the best stuff is the Pike stuff as well.
Yeah.
I only really liked Michael when she got completely like rewritten essentially
Yeah.
and was lost in space. And then, so you're like, Discovery, I almost got excited. And then we had, Picard, which was awful. And then this and Lower Decks. And it was like, oh my God, okay, I have something to live for with a fandom that I've I've loved and I've obsessed over and I've hoped for and rooted for. It's like when your team starts to do good
Yeah.
and you're just like, I'm going to watch them go all the way this season. I just want to know, even if they don't make it all the way, even if they only get most of the way, I still want to see it.
I think that there was a real conscious turn this season to go into wackiness.
There was a weird amount of wacky.
Yeah,
because I loved that first season.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh, okay, if we're going to tell cool Star Trek stories again with a cast that, we get to see some backstory on a lot of these, the B characters. I was like, okay, this is something I can definitely get behind. But
yeah, usually
I'm not the audience.
One wacky episode per season feels like enough. So it has been a lot.
Yeah.
They're trying stuff, and I appreciate and don't appreciate that at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, my turn. All right.
Sure. If you like.
So I finished up a show that you got me hooked on, Kelly, which is I guess Kelly and Eric, Hijack, because you guys Hijack. Because you had been speaking about it so excitedly, and then I spoke to my mom on the phone about other things she could watch beyond her watching a Ted Lasso. And I was like, what about Hijack? And she has my Apple login, and she's like, oh, I already watched that. And I was like, my mom has watched Hijack. Are you kidding me? So I sat my butt down and I started it, and I loved it, and it's now finished. I
will say I really, really, really enjoyed it up until some shit that happened at the very end.
Yeah.
That I thought was completely unnecessary.
Oh.
There's like a couple of really weird things.
But until that point, so solid. It was just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So,
there's so many good moments, and even most of the very end, I was like, pretty excited by it. There's just there were a couple of decisions I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. I mean, I can't not see that, but I also, did you have to do that? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to talk about a show without ruining it.
Well, yeah, but glad to watch it. No problem with that.
Go Idris.
See. Yeah. So we finally started season 2 of White Lotus after all this time.
Oh,
I
sure.
think I'll have like one episode. Probably finish it tonight. Boy, it is a drop off from the first season. Holy shit. The first season was so interesting. And you know how those shows like The Walking Dead and Sons of Anarchy afterwards would have the post-show thing where they just talk shit about the show or whatever?
Right.
Last year we watched a couple of those. Last season, we watched a couple of those going, okay, now what are we getting everything that's going on here? This one, not needing to watch one of them. It is so straightforward. And the anchor for the first season was the guy running the luxury hotel, who was just fantastic. He was hilarious. He was caustic behind the overly arrogant, super rich people's backs, but really good at his job. So he was really neat. The version of him in this season is horribly underwritten. She could be, because when she's good, she's really good, but she has so little to do.
Oh, no.
And it takes place in Italy in this one, and there's 2 local ladies of the evening, shall we say, who are far too involved for far little that they actually do. It's like what they do has a good story point, but they probably could have been in 3 episodes instead of every episode. And it's just a lot of, it's still good, but it's definitely, the first season is so great. So it's like, oh, well, it's good.
I didn't realize this was a show that starts with a brand new cast and location and everything.
It has, I think there's one continuing character from the first season, but other than that, it's pretty much different hotel, different location, all kinds of stuff. So
I assume, and is there a season 3 of it?
Yeah. Well, there's there's one coming. It's not out yet.
Oh, okay. So I assume that'll be in a new location as well.
Yeah.
Huh.
Probably.
That was one of those shows that never really stuck with me. Like I watched a couple episodes and was like, I'm not.
Yeah, the first one, once it gets going, is really good, but it's definitely the build of the story. And this, I don't know, this one just, it's fine.
Okay. White Lotus. Well, why don't we take a break, guys? And then when we come back, we're talking about your subgenre, Vanessa, which was war for some reason on the brain.
War. Weird. I don't know why I would be talking about war right now.
Even at the store, they're ready for war. Small soldiers, big battles.
Commando, report! Breath bazooka, ready to annihilate Gorgonite Star! Send in the major artillery, the Buzzsaw tank! Special delivery from Slam Fist! Commandos always win! I see it differently.
Small soldiers, big battles. You could get a hold of a small soldier, figures and vehicles sold separately.
We have returned. Vanessa, this was your subgenre.
Yes.
What are you so interested in war for right
I don't
now?
know. I'm a girl. I shouldn't be. It's very confusing right
I'm
now.
glad you said it.
Oh my.
Everyone's thinking it. Yeah, I feel like we hadn't touched on some of the war films out there that I was really interested in, especially horror films that had war in it. And I just thought, you know what, this is a great excuse to finally check out something that I've been meaning to. And then I forgot the title of the film that I wanted to watch.
Awesome.
So I was Googling, and instead I ended up watching Our Point from 2004.
한수 당나귀 3군?
내 부하들은 그때 다 죽었어. 그때 다 죽었다고.
이 무전은 3일 전에 온 거야. 6개월 전에 죽은 병사가 연대본부에 때린 무전이라고. 지난 한 달 사이면 4-5번씩이나 왔어. 그만해.
작전 기간은 7일이다. 생사를 확인할 수 있는 증거물을 확보하는 것이 이번 작전의 목표다. 총원 10명 중에 죽은 정일병 빼고 현전 9명이다.
니넨 여기서 9명이 출발했어. 9명이. 알았지?
우리 출발할 때 있었어? 우리가 해변가에 도착했을 때 그때는 있었어.
도대체 우리가 뭘 잘못했다고? 하늘소! 너! 나 듣고 싶지 않아! 너도 못 믿어, 새끼야! 죽겠단 말이야.
This has a Rotten Tomato score of 55% from critics and 65% from audience, which is too bad. I think it's because it has subtitles. This is, I believe, a Korean film. It's written and directed by Soo Chang-kong, who actually only has 3 credits to his name. And it was written by Young Woo Pil, who this is literally the only film that they've ever worked on. So, and I can tell you the film's the director, The Guard Post and Coma, does not mean anything because we are not watching random Korean movies. Starring Woo Sang Kam, who has 14 credits, including The King and the Clown, Should We Kiss First, Spider Forest, Marriage is a Crazy Thing, Byung Ho Son, who has 63 credits, including The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, I'm Not a Robot TV series, and The Good Detective TV series, not American. Lee Sun Kyung, who has 46 credits, including Parasite, A Hard Day, Dr. Brain TV show, and Paiju, and Park Won Sang, 75 credits, including W, a TV series, The Game Towards Zero, a TV series, Last, a TV series, and The King Eternal Monarch, a TV series. I think they have a lot of TV out there. The story is, we're in 1972 in the Vietnam War. There's a South Korean base in Vietnam that receives this radio transmission from a missing platoon presumed dead from what they call Our Point, which is an island near Saigon. They've been missing for 6 months. And they get this kind of haunting transmission asking people to come because otherwise they will all be killed. So Lieutenant Choi is on leave with another soldier when they end up in this brothel. And while they're sleeping off a good hard workout, an attack happens. His friend is killed. He runs out on a balcony, sees a young girl with a basket. It tells her to stop. She doesn't stop, and he ends up killing her. In the basket, of course, is a gun. So don't know quite how this works out because I think there's just some differences in cultural stuff, but he gets in trouble despite this. So he is sent out for discipline and informed that the only way that he's going to be able to get his honor back is to lead the mission to retrieve the soldiers at our point. The troops who are assigned to him are not thrilled. He's eccentric and known for getting his soldiers or the enemy soldiers killed. Did not understand that problem. I was like, isn't that a good thing? They're like, either your people end up dead or the other people end up dead. I'm like, what? Sure. Okay. But they have an incentive. So the soldiers get one, after doing this 1 week mission, will be extracted with an honorable discharge for all of them afterwards. And they get to have a nice ride out with hot ladies serving them drinks. So they're like, yeah, this actually sounds great. This is our ticket out of the war. And they have 1 week to help find these missing soldiers. And they must bring back either proof of life or death. They take a boat to the remote island and are quickly ambushed by a Vietnamese woman who is hiding with a week-old corpse. They make their way inland and come across a strange marker on the ground that says a village was in this kind of big, huge field in front of them. A village was drowned by the Viet Cong in a lake there. And it was then covered in dirt to bury the dead. So it's kind of this mass cemetery. It says those who cross into this area with blood on their hands will not leave. One guy, of course, pees on it. So,
Sure.
as you do, because military.
Because guys.
He's like, fuck you, I'm going to come back. They post up for the night, and in the morning they discover a deserted French plantation literally next to their tent, which is nice and creepy. It's huge. It's like multiple stories tall. They make their way in, but something seems to be watching them. And all of a sudden, as they spend each day in this strange place, they get really odd sightings. One guy is separated from his group who are out looking through the grass at one point, and he rejoins the unit only to discover that they don't turn their heads, and then they all get down in the grass, and he gets down in the grass because there must be a reason why. And then he gets up because they've been down there a long time, and they're all gone.
Oh.
There's no one there. The radio guy, the radio operator starts talking to a French group who say they're going to be coming by and checking up on him in a couple days. And he tells his commander, who says there is no French anywhere near here. So there's just a lot of strange stuff happening. So as the film continues, you have a real struggle with what's real and what are seemingly ghosts of dead soldiers that are indistinguishable from real ones. And knowing when you're being shot at, when it's friendly versus enemy, it's all kind of crazy. So they must kind of abandon the mission and try and figure out if they can escape or survive this scenario. Some thoughts on it. There's some gaps between me and this film. So there's a moment where a couple of guys become sort of frenemies and just start slapping each other on the head all the time, and it becomes very slapstick. But near the end, it's almost like a touching relationship. But I was like, why do they just keep hitting each other on the head? They've got to stop. This is getting irritating. It's also came out in the early aughts, so the music is this sort of electronic vibe music. So it's like, do, 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 and you're like, this is so weird. This almost matrixy style music as they're running around and hiding in hedges. It's very odd. Of course, they have cultural aspects I don't understand. There's a white lady who shows up a lot. I don't know why I kind of know why it's bad, but not fully. There's bells. There's a rumor about touching dead people's things, meaning that your hand is going to rot. there's just a bit of a divide. But that being said, the shots and the edits are really good. There's some great cinematography. There's some great cutting. There's some very freaky, eerie moments throughout. Quite a few, actually. I don't even want to spoil it, but one of the things I will say that happens pretty early on is the first guy who dies out of their platoon. The soldier calls it in and says, okay, we need help, we need backup because one of our men is down, and he gives the name, and they were like, that's not one of your men. What's wrong with you? That's one of the dead guys you're looking for.
Weird.
Yeah. So there's these, but they'd hung out with him ever since they got to the beach, and he's in a photo with them. He hung out with them. He talked to them. So there's really interesting little details throughout like that make it really strong. Honestly, I just wish I'd seen it in theaters. I watched it on Canopy for free. It was a very bad copy of it. Unfortunately, it was just an SD copy, clearly like ripped off a DVD or something. And I really wish I'd seen it on the big screen. I think that would have made a huge impact. A little bit of trivia. Before the film was released, the filmmakers conducted viral marketing to promote the film. The official website, www.ourpoint.com, carried several fictional articles such as journal, written by an American war correspondent, statements made by various soldiers who witnessed events portrayed in the film, radio transmissions supposedly received by Korean soldiers, and internet news links about missing Korean soldiers in Vietnam, and a fictional timeline of Our Point, which does not exist. It was shot in Cambodia, and the tagline, "He who sheds others' blood will not return, not even his soul."
Clunky.
A little clunky. There's a lot of dots in here too, and some capitalization. So that was my movie.
Very weird.
Yeah.
You know, I remember seeing this movie, and I can't remember a thing about it.
Sure.
But I remember seeing it on
thick.
Netflix. So
Oh, really?
But this would have been years ago.
There's a lot of Korean shows and movies on Netflix.
Yeah, I think that it got, it's one of those ones that got removed and put onto a different service. I wonder if it was part of Tartan Extreme, because I remember seeing the poster a long time ago.
Yeah, or something along that
Yeah,
line.
exactly.
Cool.
So this was not the film you were trying to watch, and you still haven't been able to remember.
I cannot figure out what the film was for the life of me. I was really Googling. I was like a lot of like war, ghost, island, cave. Could not get to it. I didn't know what
those are the things from the movie you want to see that you know.
From the trailer that I half remember of the movie I want to see.
Okay.
So now I'm wondering if this movie exists.
Somebody out there is listening will chime in, I'm sure.
Yeah. One
Chiming.
day.
Oh,
Speaking of which,
Eric, how about I put 10 minutes on the buzzer for you?
Oh, sounds good. Another one of those classics I've been meaning to see forever. And I wasn't too sure it was a war movie, but it kept showing up on war movie lists. So I thought, now's the time. 2001's Brotherhood of the Wolf.
It was at the dawn of the Age of Reason that first appeared the beast upon the county of Gévaudan. Possessed with enormous strength, it would strike without warning and disappear without a trace. When all hope seemed lost, the king sent 2 men determined to unravel the mystery. What they uncovered was a world of deception and a struggle for power that was far more dangerous than anything they could have imagined. Universal Pictures and Studio Canal proudly present to American audiences the French motion picture sensation Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 2001. Rotten Tomatoes rating 73 from critics, 78 for crowds. So it seems about right.
Yeah.
A budget of approximately 24 million in France in 2001. So maybe the euro.
Francs.
The box office was, worldwide was 70 million. So it did well worldwide. It did really well in France. It was the number one movie of the year for there. Directed by Christopher Gans, who did Necronomicon, Book of the Dead, Silent Hill, and a Beauty and the Beast, not the Disney one. Stéphane Cabel, who writing was from The Astronaut, Farang, and The Big Picture. Christopher Gans, is also currently working on a new return to Silent Hill and wrote most of the movies he directed. Starring Samuel L. Behan, who was in one of the real violent French movies in that early time, Frontiers. He's also in a very different style movie, Three Colors Red.
Sure.
The Woman with Red Hair and Disco.
Disco.
He is also one of the most popular actors in France. Or was for a time being. Mark Dacascos, who's in Double Dragon, John Wick 3, Warrior, 5 episodes, Hawaii Five-0, 18 episodes, The Crow, Stairway to Heaven, where he played Eric Draven. I never say that. Have you seen that one?
I don't remember that movie, but he was the Crow in the TV series.
Yeah, that was the TV show.
Okay, yeah, and I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah, cool. The Island of Dr. Moreau. Yes, that one.
Oh, God.
Perhaps best known, though, as the chairman on Food Network's Iron Chef America from 2005 till 2022.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
And he's still doing a new one on Netflix, Iron Chef Quest for an Iron Legend.
Excellent.
And Jeremy Renner, no, not him. But he was in Bruges and Criminal Lovers, The Child, Cavalcade, which is another weird movie. Monica Bellucci, who we're all familiar from the Matrix sequels. But she's also in Diabolique, Ginkgo Attacks, Irreversible, yay. And Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of the brides. And never mind. Something auto-corrected there, and this makes no sense. It says, the A who sold his skin. So, ouch. I don't know, I feel like a word is missing there. Vincent Cassel, who's in Black Swan, 7 episodes of Westworld, Eastern Promises, Ocean's 12, also in Irreversible. And one of his weird little side gigs for French films is dubbing Hugh Grant movies.
Oh, my God. That's incredible.
The number one Hugh Grant man. Anyways, this is about a group of hunters trying to find a creature that's killing people in the French countryside. This is being written by a Frenchman who is writing his memoirs at the beginning of the movie, recounting the times of this very interesting period for him. The base story is 2 men arrive to hunt the beast and look damn badass doing it. The intro with the long coats and the high collars and they're pulling off 3-point hats and looking badass. So, they're
pretty impressive.
And a good place. And a nice touch of almost Shaw Brothers level ass kicking for the intro of the main guy, or one of the main guys. Quickly realize they're one of many people hunting these beasts, or this beast, or whatever. They're wondering what it is still at this point. So I guess it's a war movie against a beast, a mental war movie. Among the other things, I really expected a lot more war for this movie that kept listing as a war film in so many things. But
I always thought it was took place during a war.
Yeah, it takes place during the French Revolution.
Yeah, the French Revolutionary War.
Yeah, but they don't do a lot with that. Basically, that's most of the movie, is them kind of hunting and looking around. There's a great scene in a French camp, which is a war encampment, where they come along and a fight starts. So the Native American guy, well, get back to that, kicks the crap out of a whole bunch of men and women quite thoroughly in a very well choreographed fight scene. There's a scene or two that, if you love wolves, is not great to watch. The hunting of the wolves, and then the stuffing of one of the wolves to make it look like somebody wants him to fake that they've captured this beast. And yeah, that does not look like a beast that would kill a lot of people that he makes. But that's okay. A large part of the movie is also the politics, kind of a Game of Thrones style royal intrigue between the leads and various other groups trying to show up to hunt the beast. I'm kind of wondering, my first thought when they showed the beast is, what the fuck is this? What is going on with this creature? It is wild looking. It turns out to be pretty interesting, I think, what it is and what's going on. But I will say the final 90 minutes of this movie are basically them hunting. They finally kind of find it, and the rest of them just hunting it. And yeah, this is a long ass movie. I think it could have benefited greatly from about a half an hour trim or more, because the stuff that's good is really good. But then there are scenes where you're just like, yeah, I'm not interested. I'm not invested in these royal people bitching and complaining. I don't care. But that's all right. Tagline: the year is 1766. The hunt for a killer has begun. And like I mentioned, it's over 2.5 hours long. I do think it's an incredibly well-directed movie. It looks fantastic. It moves interesting. It's shot, constructed well overall. There's some very weird effects that I don't know if it was that it was remastered weirdly or if it just looked weird, but that are very odd. But that's okay. Universal paid $2 million for the rights to distribute the movie in the U.S. and it made 11.2 here, so it did all right. Someone claims there was actually a beast of Gavadin, who is what this is based on, the legend. That was a real wolf-like creature that prowled regions of France from 1764 to 1767, killing 100 people in bizarre circumstances. So I'm not quite sure.
Sounds like a serial killer.
Yeah, I guess seems like a person-based thing or not a urban legend, but you know what I mean, where it's just, well, yes, of course it happened. To prepare for the role, Mark Dukakis learned how to ride a horse, studied Mohawk Indian culture, and became fluent in French.
Damn.
Here's the interesting part of him playing a Native American. His parents originated from the Philippines and were of Chinese, Filipino, and Spanish ancestry. His mother is Irish and Japanese. So, you know, he's got a lot
of boxes.
Got a whole lot of stuff, but that's all right. He looks badass. Yeah. And he absolutely works in the role. He is so cool in this movie. On the History Channel presentation of something called Samurai, he revealed that many members of his family were killed in the bombing of Hiroshima.
Oh, gosh.
Stepmother is also an award-winning martial artist. He attended Las Vegas College, and he went to Portland State University down in Portland, Oregon. You can see who the most interesting character to me in this movie was. The acting is superb. The guy he works with is the most popular guy I mentioned, is also very good. Some of the supporting people are fine. Other than these two guys, everybody in the movie is based on a real person. At least their name is a real person. May not necessarily fall into what they're doing in the movie, but they found real people of that time period to build the world around. Michael Atkins of The Village Voice wrote, "It's easily the most disarming and inventive movie made for genre geeks in years," because it's filled with a variety of weird genres. Variety also called it a little Sergio Leone, a little Sleepy Hollow, martial arts confrontations. All about the urban legend of the Beast of Gavadin. So I am glad I ticked this one off. It was fun.
I remember seeing this in theater, and I have zero memories of this movie.
2001 was a little while ago.
I guess it was.
22 years.
Wow. This is one of those movies that I keep going back to because I think I like it, and then it is so slow in parts that I'm like, oh, do I really like this movie, or do I just want to like it because the parts that I do like are great?
Yeah, I feel it's sort of like when I watch David Lynch's Dune. I will skip large portions of that movie, but the parts that are good are so good.
Yeah.
And this one's the same thing. The parts that are good are really good, but man, watching it again, it could be I could watch a 90-minute version or less of it now.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I keep hearing from people, you've got to see this movie. You don't remember. Oh my gosh, go watch it. And now I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Well, maybe, I guess.
The creature reveal the first time is really cool, and then when it is actually revealed, it's kind of like, oh, is this possible?
yeah. It was a little bizarre. It's kind of, I expected a little bit more of a mystical reveal to come along, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
It was, it ends oddly.
Yeah. Mark Dacascos is one of those guys that I've always liked, probably from this movie, and always wanted him to succeed, and it feels like finally he is.
Yeah, he's doing some good stuff.
Well, okay. I chose then from 1969 a movie called Castle Keep.
Once upon a time, there was a war. Was it yesterday, or was it tomorrow?
Tap me with your
And
finger.
surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Fire the...
You'll keep hearing many things about Castle Keep. You'll hear about the one-eyed falcon.
Major, I don't think you know what this castle means.
It stands on the most important crossroads in the Ardennes.
Major, it isn't possible.
It stands on the road to Bastogne.
And the dove.
If something isn't saved, then what's it all for?
The preacher.
You trained for the ministry, didn't you, Lieutenant? Why aren't you a chaplain?
The cowboy.
Yes, sir.
Is the world suffering a water shortage, Corporal Clairvoyant?
Not now, sir, but suppose this war just goes on and on and on and destroys everything in the world. Well, since the Volkswagen can get along without water, she's bound to survive when other creatures die off.
The Count.
Did I select Major Falconer, or did you?
You did, Ollie.
Most important, you must make love, but not be in love. That way I retain control. The child will be truly my creation.
The mistress of the castle.
Don't defend the castle.
You mean you want to save it too?
I want to save you.
The baker.
You're waking everybody up. Go back to your outfit.
We have no outfit. We don't believe in fighting.
Oh, who believes in fighting?
The Red Queen and her camp followers.
To where are you going?
To the ends of the earth, and I think we're there.
A 10th century castle in a 20th century war. When war comes, what is the life of one man or one castle?
Budget of $8 million and a box office of $1.8 million.
Oh.
Woof.
Rotten Tomatoes critics give it 44%, and the audience gives it 48%. Directed by indie director Sidney Pollack.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
sure.
okay,
42 credits, including The Swimmer this same year.
Oh,
Jeremiah Johnson, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Tootsie, The Firm. Written by William Eastlake, who well, he's listed as one of the writers. He is the writer of the novel. And then the other writer is Daniel Teradash, who has 21 credits, including Don't Bother to Knock, From Here to Eternity, Bell, Book, and Candle. And then also David Raphael, who has 27 credits, including Electric Horseman, Out of Africa, Absence of Malice.
Jesus.
This is a powerhouse
No
of
joke.
a cast and crew, starring one Burt Lancaster. 87 credits, including From Here to Eternity, The Swimmer, Airport, The Cassandra Crossing, which I spoke about during our pandemic episodes. Patrick O'Neill, who has 121 credits, including King Rat, Chamber of Horrors, Silent Night, Bloody Night, The Stepford Wives, and Under Siege. Peter Falk is in this, 136 credits, including The Great Muppet Caper, The Princess Bride, The In-Laws, and 48 episodes as Lieutenant Columbo on Columbo. It also stars Bruce Dern, Scott Wilson, Astrid Hayron. This is a weird movie. Probably not genre, but I will make an argument for it being genre.
All right.
So the movie starts with a ragtag group of soldiers that are jammed into one Jeep going down this bumpy dirt road in the middle of a forest. It is December 1944 during the Battle of the Bulge. We get some really weird dreamlike images of a beautiful man and woman riding horses through the woods, very Ridley Scott kind of imagery.
Nice.
And then the horse runs right in front of the men, and his rider is dressed like he's from the French Revolution or something like that. And all the soldiers are stunned, and one of them says, "We came to the wrong war." So this
Pretty
is
good.
listed as a comedy drama, and there are some funny lines in it. It is not a comedy.
Wow.
The man is a count, and he has the titular castle where the soldiers have decided they're going to barrack and decide the Germans are right behind them. So they're like, I guess this is where we're going to make our final stand. He's not too happy about it. He's like, this is my castle. And they're like, well, we are going to be making it our place.
That's where the title comes in. Castle Keep.
As they're heading towards it, the Count remarks, because they have a black soldier that is traveling with the men. And no matter what current films will have you know, black soldiers were not allowed to mix with white soldiers in World War II. And the soldier says to the Count, "These fine men rescued me from a slaver off the coast of Santo Domingo," which is a funny line. And I think it's supposed to be a funny line. There's a lot of strange humor in this movie, but it also plays into my theory. So they enter the castle, and it is just this unbelievable place that is full of the finest art, paintings, sculptures. There's mosaics on the ceiling and everything. It's just like, what the fuck? And the Count is just this art collector, right? Turns out that one of the soldiers is a art collector also before the war. So he's just like in heaven, right? This place is so cool looking. And this happens in like the first 5 minutes when the soldiers get there, and you're just seeing this amazing castle. It's so cool looking. There's also a woman there, the Countess, who is not the niece of the Count, as we are first led to believe, but his very young wife. So the Major, he starts an affair with the wife, but then finds out that the Count actually wants him to do this, and it turns out the Count is impotent, and he's hoping the Major will impregnate his wife so that the Count's lineage will continue. I told you about the lieutenant who turns out to be an art collector, and the more he sees in the castle, the more overwhelmed he becomes at the thought of using the castle as their last stand. He knows the Nazis are going to come through and just destroy everything, so he's arguing with the Major all the time about trying to use someplace else for their last stand, and when the Major doesn't budge, he starts cataloging all of the art and trying to store it underneath the castle.
Nice.
The other soldiers, they end up heading into this sleepy little Belgium town, right, to seek pleasure at the whorehouse, which is called the Red Queen. And when they get there, it is this amazing building with almost a carnival atmosphere in the middle of this tiny Belgium town that seems almost deserted, right? One of the men, Peter Falk, was a baker before the war, and instead of going to the whorehouse, he goes to the bakery, which is owned by a beautiful woman whose husband has been killed in the war. She welcomes him into her bakery and her bed, and he mostly goes AWOL during the movie.
Oh, jeez.
And then one of the soldiers is Scott Wilson, who you might remember as Herschel on The Walking Dead. So it's kind of interesting to see him as a very young, attractive man. He ends up falling in love with a Volkswagen Bug. And it actually borders on like romantic love. He's driving this Bug in a circle around the castle, and the major comes out and he's like, am I going to have to write you up for this? You're using enemy technology, all this stuff. And he's just sitting there saying, what an amazing piece of machinery this is. And he's just stroking it while he's talking. And the major's like, all right, I'm going to let this pass. And then eventually the Nazis do arrive, and we get a pretty amazing battle scene at the end between all the soldiers, and no one fares very well. I ended up really loving this movie, not because of the general stuff that you think I would love out of it, like Burt Lancaster in 1969, but because of how weird and dreamlike it is. Our friend of the podcast, Wade Chitwood, he was the one who introduced this film to me. And we watched it together. There's a scene that was so strange that I finally commented on it to him, and he just lit up because he has had this amazing theory this entire time, and I caught on to it, right? So in one scene, there's hundreds and hundreds of injured soldiers walking through this deserted Belgium town, and they're all walking in the same direction, and they're in bad shape. They're bloody, they're missing limbs, all that kind of stuff. And the major, Burt Lancaster, is walking a white horse opposite them, and he's trying to get their attention. And he finally asks one of the soldiers where he's going. And the soldier says he's looking for his captain. And Lancaster says, your captain is dead. And the soldier says, yes, sir, he's just up ahead.
Oh.
And so I said to Wade, are they already dead and they don't know it? And he was like, because he thinks they are all in purgatory, waiting to figure out if they go to heaven or hell.
Oh.
And it started making some of the things that make no sense make sense. Because the Volkswagen Bug, for example, gets a lot of the soldiers, they don't like the idea of this German machinery here, so they sink it in the moat. But then it suddenly floats to the surface, and Scott Wilson sees it, and he jumps into the moat, swims out to it, gets in it, and drives it back to shore on top of the water.
Oh, wow.
And, which is a total fantasy moment. And then some of the art that's in the castle is clearly art that was already in museums during World War II, so why is it there? And then also when Peter Falk goes to the bakery the first time, it's almost like the woman and her child recognize him. And she even grabs his hand, and like as soon as he comes in, she grabs his hand, she leads him up the stairs, and she says, come to bed. And it seems like such an intimate thing to say to someone you wouldn't know if you were just going to have sex or something, right? It seems more like, I was like, is this his wife and his child? So during the final battle scene, we see all of our soldiers die, but the narrator explains how all of the American soldiers survive, even though we see that they do not. So if it's not genre, it's definitely surrealism, and I really loved it. I researched the fuck out of the film, could find nobody else suggesting that was the case for the story, but there is one mention of eternal recurrence, which is a philosophical concept of time repeating itself in an infinite loop. And that also kind of feels like what's going on. I'm going to rush through this. Also, at the beginning, the narrator says, and then the snow came. It was a good time to write, for all of us have been killed twice, and some of us 3 times. Maybe that's why we were at the castle.
Wow.
So, trivia. The castle set in Yugoslavia blew up and burned to the ground. It was quite a surprise to the cast and crew. Sidney Pollack immediately grabbed the camera and shot what he could of the burning castle.
Oh my God.
In some scenes in the film, including the climactic battle at the castle, Major Falconer wears a tan jumpsuit, jacket, and pants uniform, usually only issued to paratroopers. So their costumes aren't quite matching who they are and all that stuff. And then I'll just mention this last one. Burt Lancaster wears a patch over a good right eye for his character. Peter Falk, who actually lost his right eye at the age of 3, wore a glass eye for the film.
Oh.
Where did you watch this on?
It is available to rent on Prime.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
I mean,
I ended up buying it after Wade showed it to me. So
yeah, I was gonna say The Swimmer is like one of my favorite films.
I know. This is the same year as The Swimmer, and The Swimmer is considered one of his, best films.
Yeah.
And then this one is considered a real stinker. And I just was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I fucking love this movie.
It kind of almost sounds like people not dismissing it for its weirdness and
it could
just
be that,
moving on.
and I was just surprised that there was nobody else saying, I think they're in purgatory or something like that, because it seems like super obvious.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm a smart guy. I don't catch things that the rest of the world hasn't caught, you know?
I think you're smart, but the things you pointed out do all sound like they have to be.
Yeah. It's a very, very strange movie.
Wow.
Really, really cool, though. Called Castle Keep. And I loved watching it again and using it as my possibly genre war film.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I mean, I would say if nothing else, it's fantasy. So
yeah.
Or surrealism.
It's
form of
listed
fantasy.
as comedy drama.
No. Does not sound like a funny movie to me. I don't find anything funny. So.
There are very funny lines in it, you know, and delivery of lines. And so I can see that, but it's kind of the kind of humor that would come from a bunch of guys who have seen a lot of shit they hadn't, they hadn't seen before. And so now you're very comfortable saying the weirdest shit to these people.
Yeah.
And they all seem very ready to die. They're very aware that the Germans are going to roll right over them. Or the Nazis, not the Germans. Sorry.
I find it fascinating that both your film and my film kind of take place in this weird extra space in the middle of war.
Yeah.
Huh.
Actually, that's true of mine, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they all three do.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you get into genre war, you're going to be, I had thought for a minute, it's like, oh, Jacob's Ladder.
I know.
But then you're like, how do you talk about Jacob's Ladder without giving it away to someone who hasn't seen it, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And like in even the war, it's like arguing. I mean, yes, the war, but also not, but yes, but everything about that film is difficult to tap into.
Okay.
Eric, I think that this is the subtopic for you next week.
Yes. So let's go even grimier and potentially nastier, although there's lots of comedies in this world too.
Mm-hmm.
Cannibal films.
Oh, God.
Cannibal the musical, if you haven't seen it. I could recommend that.
One of my least favorite genres. Thanks, asshole. Okay. Well, then, that means this is the part where we say thank you to everyone who is liking and sharing posts, who's participating in the Value for Value model. I like getting messages from Will Lau and pictures. And
his vacations are so long, man. So cool.
Or little memes from Ron or Michael DeBronzo and I constantly talking about what films are coming out, what looks awful, what looks great.
Did you find out anything on the book? You put out a call to see if anybody would tell you about
nobody's claimed for the War of Art. I don't know.
It's a ghost.
Could it have accidentally been sent to me and it just happened to be the book I needed to read?
There
Do you think you accidentally ordered it when you were
How dare you?
sober
When I was what?
all the time?
That's right. It was late o'clock at night. You were very tired.
You were just snoozy.
You know what? That was a nice save, so I'm going to let that slide. Okay, so I think that is it. You know, if you want to reach out to us, you certainly can on the Strange Eons Radio hotline, which is 253-237-4266. Drop us a note. Let us know that we can use it on the air. We always love that kind of stuff. And that's about it, guys. We will be back in 1 week. We're talking cannibals. See you next Thursday.
See you.
Transportation and other considerations for Strange Eons Radio produced by Pan Am Airlines. When you think of traveling, think of Pan Am. You can't beat the experience. Guests of Strange Eons Radio stay at Econo Lodge Everett. It's an easy stop on the road, if you know what we mean. Strange Eons Radio is recorded live in front of a studio audience. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a positive review on your favorite podcast app. Sit, Ubu, sit.
I was like, what about Hijack? And she's like, oh, I already watched that. And I was like, my mom has watched Hijack.